8.2.2 The practice of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience sends you straight to the kingdom of heaven. We should be settled by liberating the realm of the fourth Adam. The true parents should teach you all of this before going to the spirit world. Reverend Moon practices absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience centered on the absolute family. That is why God serves that family. The eternal path of true love is connected to this. If you fail to practice absolute faith, absolute love will not take root. When the bud comes out, it should be nurtured in order to grow. For it to grow, you should invest all of your blood and flesh and sacrifice yourself. We no longer need indemnity, nor do we need salvation. Thus we should follow the law of heaven and earth, centering on the principle, and teach absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. Now the new law is emerging. The Constitution is emerging. If we practice absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience on earth, the eternal kingdom of heaven is realized. From the earth, you should naturally be able to see, feel, and know the world of heaven. God created based on absolute faith and with a heart of absolute love and absolute obedience. For this reason, the Unification Church stands in a position of practicing absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience at the place where we attend the heavenly parent and the earthly parents with the title of the true parents. Therefore, centering on the family of love, which is based on the ideal of creation, all could be united and establish the victorious hegemony upon which foundation the sovereign nation of love could begin. We are now living in such an age. The blessed families are the people who have inherited God's lineage of true life and with whom God can be connected both in spirit world and physical world. Thus, God can rule over them as He pleases. So from now on, God is pushing forward the history of restoration without indemnity conditions according to His will and with His full authority. The question is whether or not you are suitable, whether or not you can stand in a reciprocal relationship with God. Once you have made the determination and become one with the standard of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, everything will work at lightning speed, becoming equal. Once you become true sons and daughters standing in a position of oneness with God and God's absolute love and lineage, the entire universe will be bequeathed to you as His sons and daughters. Then everything belongs to you. When you become one in love, everything becomes yours.
The blessed families are equal in value to the world and cosmos. They are like the sons and daughters of Reverend Moon's direct lineage who can act on his behalf. When I gave them the blessing, I did so in order for them to become better than me by following me. So, once you have the heart of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, you can do the things I did. When God created, He started with such a heart. God, the subject partner, said, "When I speak, my object partners of love substantially appear." This is absolute faith. Upon this, He meets the partner of absolute love. To be an owner of love, a partner of love, is indispensable. That is why even God Himself absolutely obeys love. A circular movement arises whenever we adopt an absolute response. In the Garden of Eden, God created with absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. The realm of oneness of God and human beings in love is created through absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. The kingdom of heaven in heaven and the kingdom of heaven on earth are to be the realms of oneness of God and human beings in love, so that His sons and daughters, who are like the absolute God, can freely exercise their full authority, and they are to be the worlds where they can freely travel wherever they go. We can finally liberate God only when we become people of ability who can do such activities. Everything was shattered due to lack of faith. This happened because the first human ancestors failed to absolutely love God. They failed because of their inability to absolutely love and obey God. For this reason, the true parents have indemnified this and prepared the highway for all of us to follow. Thus, if you practice absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience toward the true parents, heaven and earth will respond and obey you, even if you call upon them day or night and wake them up 10 times. You should therefore not complain, even if you are woken up 100 times during the night. This is obedience. Consensual obedience has within it a part of self, but in complete obedience, this does not exist. You should be obedient even if it means following 1,000 times a day.
The world on earth and the world in heaven become one with God as the center. Carrying a signboard for unification, the world on earth and the world in heaven become one with God as the center. Carrying a signboard for unification with the true parents as the center, they unite. God created with absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, and for this reason, we should also stand on a foundation of all transcendence, all immanence, all authority, and omnipotence. Because we have now returned to the original state of creation, in order to find the object partners of love here, we are to invest and forget about it with a heart of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. By copying that God has done, we ourselves should also practice absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience towards this world on behalf of God. Your families represent history and heaven and earth. By becoming absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal families, in attendance to God with absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, when your families turn into eternal tribes, eternal peoples, and thus create the eternal kingdom of heaven, the age of the kingdom of heaven on earth is directly connected to the kingdom of heaven in heaven, and one unified world is created.